Do you actually have to be on cocaine to be on this podcast?
It's a great day to be a Wildcat!
Durfing.
What's up, everybody? You are listening to yet another edition of Cocaine Willie. I am your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and you may be wondering yet again, why am I dancing by myself on the title screen? Well, the big reason why is because we broke up our last episode into 3 different episodes. You may have already heard. If you haven't yet, go ahead and check it out. Our quarterback position preview, in addition to our just high-level overview of the offense in general, the offense at large. Our second part of the offensive position group preview was our running backs and wide receivers preview. Today, what you're listening to is the offensive line and tight end group preview. We'll start with the tight end group, a very crowded tight end room, including 5-star Linkon Cure. I think we're all excited about that. And an offensive line room that, despite the injury to George Fitzpatrick, is a star-studded group as well, with a number of blue-chip recruits, as well as transfers who have come in from large programs like Penn State. So stay tuned, listen to that episode. I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Auntie Mae's Parlor. Auntie Mae's is the best bar in Aggieville. Let's just call a spade. Check out their events. They've got stuff running every week, from trivia to comedy, open mics. They've got pie, Thera Pie, which I think is sold out for next Tuesday, August 12th. So I guess you're a little out of luck. You're too little too late if you're trying to go to Thera Pie. But we've got the Underground Guitar Pull next week. Thursday, August 14th. You've got Dirty Spoons on Saturday, August 16th. So they got a ton of stuff going on. And as we lead up to the first game of the season here, it's a great place to just hang out, have a relaxing night, get some craft cocktails, some draft beers, all that good stuff. So go visit your auntie at 616 North 12th Street. And without further ado, let's get into the tight end and offensive line position group preview. Okay, tight end. Loaded room yet again. We're returning the 4 guys that caught touchdowns last year. You have Andrew Metzger coming out of his redshirt season. How many tight ends catch touchdowns this year? So we had 4 last year. You're bringing in 5-star Linkon Cure. You've got Metzger coming out of his redshirt. What do you have it at? Are you going back with 4? Is it going to be over, under? I'll set it at 4. Or right at. Chef, you're muted.
4. Okay, let's work through this together. I think 4 is a great number because Oakley is an obvious one. I think Ancio is an obvious one. I think Lofton is leaning more that he catches one than he doesn't, because he was technically, before he got banged up, he was tight end 2. That gave the opportunity to Will Ancio.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Lofton is looking strong this offseason from social media, from all indication that he's just taking back where he was off, or where he left off. So I got 3 there. I think Will Swanson is the big question mark for me. Swanton. I don't have faith that he'll get one. And that just 1 is crazy, but I think Swanee knows his role even more this season as the senior going out. Maybe that gives him a lollipop.
Oh, no. We lost Chef at Lollipop.
Oh. Okay, am I back?
He's back.
Okay, I'm back. All right. The Holiday Inn is starting to heat up right now. So
we lost you at Lollipop.
Lollipop. Okay, so Will Swanson, he might get one of those just for being a senior, but I think he won't. And I think Linkon Cure is almost a guarantee that he gets one. I think they will force feed his ass a touchdown somehow, some way. I think maybe even in the Wildcat. I'm gonna leave that there.
Okay. In what situation?
Why? What in the
You know, I mean,
world?
what's the situation?
I agree with. I think Linkon Cure is more likely to get a touchdown than Will Swanson this season.
Sure.
I don't think they're going to force feed him a touchdown. Maybe the North Dakota game when he's getting a decent number of snaps in the fourth quarter. It's possible that's almost kind of like how Dylan Edwards last year, in the first game of the year, scored a touchdown. You get people excited about that. But I think Will Swanson is going to have a defined role this season of not necessarily a pass catching tight end. And you're going to see Garrett Oakley and look, Braden Lofton, before he got hurt last year, he made some good catches. He really showed a proficiency at the position. And so did Will Ancio, especially later on in the season. So I think 4 is a really kind of safe number, just because I think you're going to end up seeing a lot of 2 tight end sets. Linkon Cure will be the one that it'll be interesting to see how he's going to be leveraged, because I almost think you could see him, there's 2 tight end sets, but he's actually out wide. He's in a situation where he's out wide, and you see, just with the size on the field, that could be interesting. But I'm going to say 4.
Some would say a 3 tight end set with Linkon Cure as a Wildcat quarterback at North Dakota. Welcome to college football late in the third quarter when we're up 38-3.
In what world are you going to put Linkon Cure as a Wildcat quarterback?
When it happens, it's not a prediction. It's a spoiler, like my boy Paul Heyman would say.
I don't even know how we how do we follow that up. Okay. The next question from Zach on his overs and unders from 2022. Will anybody meet or exceed Ben Sinnott's yardage from 2022, which was 447 total receiving yards for Ben Sinnott? Meet or exceed?
Well, Chef, why don't you go on this one, because you're so adamant about blah blah blah. So,
and it's funny because he didn't even go with that he went with 2022, which I think 2023 he had a better season. But
I think the thought process was, okay, if this is Big 12 championship aspirations, let's try to compare and contrast to that year. But I won't put words in his mouth.
Yeah, I mean, 400. I mean, that would go against everything that I was saying about like where the production is going to be coming from, because if we have a tight end that has exceeded Ben Sinnott's production, I just don't see it. I think there's too many tight ends. One, that would never if we're going to facilitate the tight ends, I don't think we're going to get it from just one. Garrett Oakley's good, but I don't think he's necessarily a feed me kind of tight end. I think he has his red zone moments, and I think he has his sneak out wheel moments. So I think 400 is lofty for a packed room like we do have. I think somewhere in the 390, 380 with, 4 touchdowns is a great season for a tight end with how many tight ends we have currently on the roster.
I agree with that. I don't think there's going to be a tight end that's going to do 447, just because I think the room has got a lot of talent, and there's going to be situations where you're going to play the hot hand too. I think in some games, when you trust a lot of these players, and it's going to be game by game from a situational perspective. If you need a guy like Will Swanson to be out there a little bit more, putting him in some blocking scenarios, but maybe good in the play action game, for a couple catches. So I think just there's too many players to have one that's going to get singled, for 450 passing yards. But you could see, 2 guys, 3 guys that have, over 200 on the season. I think there's potential there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think the funny thing about that 2022 season was obviously Adrian Martinez's breakout game was that Oklahoma game, and that was really Ben Sinnott's breakout game too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, he really emerged when he started carrying, and I think he got the momentum off of that, and I think he got all of his receiving yards probably within maybe 3 or 4 games. He was so dynamic in a couple of those games. I could think of that Baylor game. And the Baylor game with Will Howard and the Oklahoma game were just 2 of his lights out games. So it's tough for a tight end, especially in modern, if you're not feeding him the rock, there's really no way that they're going to even have time to get those explosive catches to get over 400 yards.
So I would normally do a 3 deep here because tight end, typically there aren't 7, 8, 9, 10 guys in the tight end room. But how do you stack rank these guys if you're projecting out a depth chart?
Oakley 1. I think we all agree on that.
Yep.
I would actually go Braden 2. And then, like Matt said, man, it's so situational. I mean, Will Swanson has such a pivotal role. He's basically our fullback, and I mean, shout out to the Big 12 for acknowledging that. And giving him his flowers where it's due, but I gotta put him at 3, Will Swanson at 3, and I think it's a close third because your boy Linkon Cure is creeping. He's creeping.
Yeah. Would you have Linkon above Metzger?
Yes.
Ancio.
Oh fuck! I forgot about Ancio.
No, not yet.
I forgot about Ancio. I'll be honest, I forgot about Ancio. Take back everything I said. It is just the way you said it. Oakley, Lofton, Ancio, Will Swanson is a fullback.
I agree.
All right. Final position group, offensive line. We've talked a little bit about it in the headliner segment at the very top. What is the impact of George Fitzpatrick's health scare? Chef, you obviously got to meet the guy and chat a little bit of ball with him. So I've been waiting a few weeks to hear you talk a little bit more about that conversation and how that projected out for your depth chart or how that impacted your view of what the depth chart was at the time. I'm also curious how that changes with him potentially not being available for a good chunk of the season, depending on how things go there. But he's obviously going to have a delayed return to the team. I'm curious, when you look at the guys that were returning, the guys that were bringing in transfer guys, dudes that are more, up and comers in the program who were big recruiting wins, who maybe haven't had their time in the spotlight yet. How do you think this mix of guys, just in general, is going to impact the more critical components of the game that are reliant on offensive line prowess, which is, the running game, the passing game? How do you think the current composition of the offensive line is going to impact, the passing and the rushing games respectively with the way it's currently composed?
I mean, it's essential. It's literally the foundation of all football. If you don't have an offensive line, you don't have anything. I mean, if you can't get time to pass the ball, you don't pass the ball. If you don't have holes to run the ball, you don't run the ball. I think it's arguably the most unheralded position in all of sports. People don't talk about it enough. I mean, they're obviously, compensated at the highest levels of football in terms of getting paid, and their importance is known to ball knowers like us. But people don't think about the big uglies enough. And with how this team is set up and losing George Fitzpatrick for, I don't know how long he's out. It's unfortunate that he's out for any time. And we wish him all the well. But left tackle is a question now. And I think it's going to be a guy that is very unproven. Unless you could put Enos in there, which I think is a possibility, but I think you really wanted him at right tackle, because now you're bringing up guys that haven't seen the field all that much. I think Liney is a swing guy who could play left or right tackle, and I think he'll be the starter wherever it goes. If Enos doesn't grab it and it's Pastore, I think Liney is going to be swinging with Enos and whatever. It's just vice versa. I think those are your 3 tackles right there. I think you have Enos, you have Pastore, and I think you have Lion Gang. And then at Sam Hecht is locking down center. We don't really even need to.
Discussion.
We need to give him his flowers, but I mean, he is the best center that we have on the roster, and he's locked down. He might be first team all this year. And then the guards. I think TP, he looks strong as ever. He went to media days. He's probably going to be a captain. He's really big. He's really strong. I think I was more inclined for him to be a swing guy this year, but now I'm thinking that TP is probably going to be one of our best O linemen. And then it shifts to JB Nelson. Where does he fit in? Is he another guard? Is Enos a guard? Do they find one of these younger guys to be another guard that can step up and play that position? A Drake Beckwith or somebody in that ilk. So, man, Caden Massey, I heard good things about him.
Yeah.
But, there's only so many snaps. There's only so many positions. And there's only so many times that you really want to be swinging guys in and out and not building that cohesion, especially for what Matt has said in the past, where the offensive line can start slow and it can make everything else look a little ugly because they're building from scratch. So that's how I got it. I've got it from left to right. I've got it Enos, Nelson, Hecht, Taylor Portier, and Andrew Linkon.
Wow. Chef said everything almost kind of to the T that I would have. I think it's George Fitzpatrick was a major player from a transfer perspective for us. And to have him to shore up with some defections on the line was huge. And to now not have him, at least for probably the first part of the season, it's going to be getting some of these other guys that we've brought in to kind of step in and figure it out. I would have the same line that you said is my prediction as well. But this line's going to have to get it together early. There's no break in time that we have with typical seasons. You are playing a very tough defensive team in the first game of the year, and so it's going to be important for these guys to be together and cohesive along that front. So for me, it's I'm a little nervy about it. I really am. That being said, the size on this line, this unit, is something we have not seen from a K-State perspective in a long time, maybe ever. I mean, if you think about just the how massive these guys are, it does give you a little bit of hope that this group can, if this group can improve, as the season goes on, you can take advantage of that size, especially against some fronts like you're going to see, like Texas Tech, who's bringing in some really good defensive linemen. The key is to keep Avery upright, and the key is to take away negative plays in the run game. And so it's going to be very important for the offensive line to get that together.
And you're coming off of, it's been talked about a lot, you're coming off of an all-time high by a lot in yards per carry on average for the running game. So we will, that's something we're going to have to keep our eyes on going into this season of, will the offensive line be able to protect appropriately for Joe Jackson, Dylan Edwards, and those runners, in addition to Avery, who's going to be getting some of his own in the rushing game. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on which younger guy. So this could be a transfer guy, or this could be one of those dudes that were a big recruiting win. So I think of, Gus Hawkins, we've already mentioned Caden Massey, Kyle Rockers, you think of Amos Talalele, who we brought in from USC. Who of these, big recruiting wins, big portal win guys, and I'm taking out, proven commodity like a JB Nelson or George Fitzpatrick in this equation. Who of those younger guys, who of those newcomers who are maybe up and comers who haven't proven themselves as starters just yet, who do you think is going to work themselves into the rotation more and more throughout the season? Because as we know, traditionally with Connor Riley and hopefully with Brian LePack as well, we see a lot of rotation on that line, and we have a lot of guys that get good in-game experience throughout the season. So I'm curious of those guys, who do you think is kind of that next man up that we'll start to see ascend the ranks this season?
Got a name for you boys. Navarro Shunky. Listen to me when I tell you that redshirt freshmen are usually, this is when they start building their weight. Look at our true freshmen this season. 6'5", 268 pounds, 275 pounds. They're not built ready. Navarro Shunky came in last year at probably about 300 pounds. He's at 325, all of 6'6". He is a massive human being. He can play guard. I don't know if he can play center, but he can play both guard spots. With how we are running guards right now, and a lot of them want to be tackles, I think if you look at outside of Taylor Portier, I think all of our guards kind of want to be tackles. They're all, and like Matt was saying, look at the size. Well, they're all humongous human beings. Usually we get these guards that are kind of like in that 6'3" range, that 6'2" range, kind of squatty, can really move bodies on those interior offensive linemen. Our offensive line is massive, and Navarro Shunky is right there. I think that he could work himself into a rotational swing piece, and he's a redshirt freshman. So, and he's a former wrestler, like all-American wrestler that really digs down and can, hip toss you. I wish they would allow that, because I want to see some judo throws and some pins out there.
And that was a fun recruiting win too, because wasn't he like South Dakota Player of the Year and 4-star?
He was a 4-star on a lot of sides.
Yeah, he was a walk-on because he got some Native American scholarships. So amazing stuff there. But obviously with roster limits, like I'm sure he's probably, getting his now, but just kind of a funny recruiting story at the time. Maybe one of the last recruiting stories we may hear that's similar to that in this new world of college football. But sorry to cut you off there, Matt.
No, I mean, a player that I think is going to be pretty important is I'm going to butcher the last name, but Amos Talalele. I got it right. I'm pretty sure.
Amos Talalele.
Talalele.
He crushed it.
I think that's he's going to be a key player, for us. And, it's hard because there's a lot of young guys that you could give some names to, but offensive line is a very difficult position, as you said, to really break in snaps, especially for younger guys who are still, building themselves up, getting stronger. And most importantly, it's not necessarily just how strong you are at that position, but it's also just fundamentals and coming from high school to college. So I think having a guy who has experience, from a major conference, that was a big kind of transfer recruiting win for us. So I'll be interested to see, just how he's leveraged kind of moving forward. And then I will, pay attention, especially, week 0. I think week 0 is going to give you a really better indication of what your actual offensive line, is going to be, because you don't have the North Dakota game to try people out. You really have to go with who you think's going to be your starting 5 for the majority of the season in game 1. So that's why I'm nervous about that group.
I'm kind of hoping it's Caden Massey personally as one of those up and comers, because the dude is 6'8", and I believe he was a tackle. I don't know if he would be like a left side or a right side guy, but I just think about, any defensive lineman trying to get around a 6'8", 315 tackle on either side is a tall task. No pun intended there, but it's definitely he's one of those recruiting wins I was most excited about when we got the guy, redshirt freshman coming into this year, and a local Kansas guy, as we all know as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the table, hopefully as one of the future guys on this offensive line. My last question before we, this is second to last question. Last question on O-line specifically. Offensive line gelling can take time, as we've learned, especially in the Kleiman era. How long, over under, let's say 3.5 games until the offensive line gels, whatever that means for you?
That's tough. I mean, that's almost an impossible over under because it's, that's my opinion. I'll say I don't think we look clean versus Iowa State by any means. It's almost impossible for a conference game week 0 with the new offensive line that will be looking peak performance. So that's already one game down. North Dakota will probably be trying new guys based on what we saw in Iowa State. So we probably won't look great there. Army is a totally different beast. We're probably going to be limiting possessions and probably not even running the offense that we kind of want to run versus, because if you run too fast versus Army, then you're out of the game. So 3.5. And then is Arizona.
Yep.
I could see Arizona. We're forming. Yeah, I could see Arizona. We're forming. But I'd probably say UCF. If I had to be honest, I think UCF is where we hit our stride. Friday, coming off of that game, we get an extra day of rest and probably go to the drawing board and say, hey, these are our best guys. This is what we look the best at. UCF will probably be coming out there pretty clean and on a mission. That's one of my games of, the year where we have to be our best. So that's a pivotal game.
I think it's just it's too tough of a question because every game is going to be just completely different in how your offensive line is going to be preparing for the other team. It's quite possible like they have it together against Iowa State, but you play Army and you're just, you're discombobulated, or you play, you're playing against, some tougher defenses in the country, or, like Texas Tech, who we're anticipating is going to have, a really good defense. And your offensive line just looks completely shook. So, I mean, if we're looking at, okay, what's the game where, sacks are lower, or, I don't know. I think it's just really hard to judge when a group like that is gelling until they're like doing something wrong. Like that's for me, like when I look at an offensive line. So I don't even know if I can give a good prediction, because it's like, it's very subjective as to how you might deem the offensive line to be gelling.
Yeah, but that's always our trigger word with, that's always our trigger word with the offensive line. I mean, we can't say that we don't know what gelling is now when that's like basically our go-to, like that, when is the O-line going to gel? We kind of know when we see it. And it could be game to game that they have a bad game. That doesn't mean they're gelled. They just gelling to shit. I don't know. It's, to me, I think that's why I think it's early mid-season. I think that's when the team gels. You finally get especially with how much we rotate, I think that's when you find out who the best of the best is. And that's when you kind of stop seeing the rotation, to be honest. You don't see too much rotation after usually the first conference game.
And if we pick up a sponsorship from Dr. Scholl's because we're gelling, then you'll know it. But not a sponsor, could be. Dr. Scholl's, hit us up, shoot us a DM. Okay, last question. I'm going to break this episode up, so don't worry. What are the 3 things you need to see from this offense this year if K-State's going to win the conference championship in the Big 12?
3 things? I mean, I basically just go over what we went through over in the episode. I mean, obviously, it's a very mature, very hardened, very, I mean, dogmatic. I don't even know what the word is. Avery Johnson. He's got to have it in him. He's got to be electric this season. And just mentally, that's what I think that comes down to. The running back room, do we get adequate production in the run game from players that aren't Dylan Edwards? And then offensive line, can they find a way to assemble something maybe when George comes back? If not, just, bring it together and be proficient.
A key piece is going to be limiting your mistakes, less turnovers. A lot of that's going to come from Avery, and limiting his interceptions and fumbles for, from what we saw last season. You mentioned the offensive line. That's going to be, if this team's going to go far, this offensive line is going to really have to come together quick, and in protecting Avery Johnson. Also being, doing a good job with, creating holes for Dylan Edwards in the run game. A lot of success for a team comes from the offensive line, and you look at it from, whoever makes, the college football playoff, national championships, that type of stuff. Offensive line is a key piece to that puzzle. And then admittingly, I think just from the wide receiver room and the skill positions, you're going to have to see a lot of improvement from past seasons to even sniff something. And so is your number 2 wide receiver, better this year than we saw from the number 2 last season? And, are you seeing some development with some of those players? I is going to be key. So, if this team wants to go far, just a lot of improvement from last season, obviously, is going to be the kicker.
Yeah, I think
How
keeping
fun
go ahead.
would Trey Spivey be on this team?
Well, it's hard because we saw him. He had a couple games that you would consider what his breakout games, right? But he wasn't necessarily it would have been interesting to see with this offseason and him kind of understanding what his role was going to be if he could get there. But a lot of people were high on him last year. He had some good moments, but he also didn't do much in a lot of games either. I mean,
he was wide receiver 4. So, I mean, that's what he would be this season, but he wanted to be wide receiver 3 at Arizona. So,
yeah. And you've got Ted McMillan is gone. So I don't know, maybe Trey Spivey puts up 110 yards on us and catches a touchdown, and they still lose, 40-3 on Friday night in Tucson.
Well, we can't catch a touchdown if they only scored 3.
40 to 10. Yeah. Math is hard. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us for the offensive position group previews. I'll probably end up breaking this up into a couple different position groups because we went way over tonight, but that's going to do it for this edition of Cocaine Willie. Shout out again to our sponsor, Auntie Mae's Parlor, located at 616 North 12th Street in Aggieville. Check out their website, auntiemays.com, for a full list of their upcoming events. And if you're stopping by, be sure to tell them Cocaine Willie sent you. Maybe they'll have some koozies by then. Who knows? And be sure also to check out cocainewillie.com. It's where we got our merch store. We got all sorts of stuff. Wildcat Country, Let's Ride merch. Great stuff there. And we are the K-State representative on the College Huddle, which is the largest community of fan-driven content in the nation. So check them out at thecollegehuddle.com and follow them on social media at College Huddle. Last but not least, follow the show at Cocaine Willie anywhere you have social media, and follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef is at Chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt is at Matt Marchesini. Chef.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
We are all Coke and no joke. Wildcat Country.
Let's ride. Oh,
Jesus.
Let's ride.
Christ.
All right, that's going to do it for our tight ends and offensive line position group previews, and that's going to do it for the whole offense. Our next episode or series of episodes, we'll be focusing on the defense, and we'll be covering everything from the big uglies up front, the defensive tackles, the defensive line, the edges, the linebackers, the corners, the safeties, you name it. We're going to be covering it. The switch to the 4-2-5 and adding that into the mix a little bit as well, and the implications that will have on the season more broadly. So that's going to do it for us today. Again, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Anti-Maze Parlor. Visit their website, www.antimaze.com, to get a list of their upcoming events. Again, the comedy, the trivia, you name it, they've got it. They're Anti-Maze, and they've got great beers, cocktails, all that good stuff. They've got koozies if you want koozies. And, more broadly, we are the K-State representative on the College Huddle. So be sure to check out the College Huddle. It's the largest community of fan-driven content in the nation. You can find them on social media at College Huddle, or check them out with, kind of a full aggregate of everything that's happening across all the different affiliates at thecollegehuddle.com. And last but not least, you can follow our show at Cocaine Willie, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, you name it. We're just not on Facebook because we're not boomers, but follow us individually as well. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef is at Chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt is at Matt Marchesini. We are all Coke and no joke Wildcat country. Let's ride.